Now you can get the best names in audio and video at the best prices without leaving Manassas. Audio Buys in the festival at Bull Run is your full-service audio and video store with all the major name brands. We offer 90 days same as cash and in-house financing, plus a 30-day price guarantee. We pride ourselves on service, and our staff is the most knowledgeable and professional audio and video experts in the area, from car stereos to TVs to full home entertainment systems. Audio Buys in the festival at Bull Run Shopping Center.
And there's no question in my mind or in the mind of our key people that what we hit was a military target.
Germany's foreign minister says Syria is ready to recognize Israel's right to exist as part of a post-war Middle East settlement. Hans-Dietrich Genscher here made the remarks after a meeting with his Syrian counterpart in Damascus. Later, Syria indicated there is no major change in its policy and still it wants Israel to withdraw from occupied territories. Israeli officials also suggest no real change in Syria's position.
Time to see what happened in the world of business today. Beverly Shook is at the Business News Desk in New York. Beverly?
Cheryl, a late round of program buying sent the Dow Industrial sharply higher today. The blue chip index up 34.5 points at 2909.16. Volume again very heavy, 210 million shares traded. On the broader and secondary markets, the S&P 500 index and the New York Stock Exchange Composite Index both closed at all-time highs. Plunging demand for new cars pulled retail sales down in January, off 0.9%, and December's decline was much worse than previously reported, revised down 1.5%. The U.S. Transportation Secretary today softening his hard line on British Airways fare cuts. Samuel Skinner yesterday rejected the carrier's 33% transatlantic fare cuts, but now says he may consider a new request for cheaper fares for a shorter time.
The consumers will benefit if a resubmission is made by British Airways on that, but it is too dicey at this time for us to approve something that goes well into the fall when we don't even know what carriers will be there and what role they will have. And that is on that basis that we made that.
British Airways says it will continue selling its one-third off New York to London tickets until midnight Thursday. And that is the latest from the Business News Desk in New York. I'm Beverly Shook.
At least 36 people were killed today in the crush of hundreds of worshipers trying to get into a church near Mexico City. The crowd tried to push into the Catholic Church in the town of Chalma for a special Ash Wednesday service. Another 25 people were hurt. One official called the crush a human avalanche. The church is known for a religious icon believed to work miracles. It also draws large crowds on Ash Wednesday.
A potential terrorist threat aboard a United Airlines jumbo jet now appears to have been a prank. The United flight from Tokyo to San Francisco turned back today when a middle-aged Japanese man told a cabin attendant he had a bomb in an air sickness bag. Witnesses told officials the man appeared to be drunk. He spent the rest of the flight seated between two airline employees. Police took the man into custody when the plane landed.
Airports across the United States are at their highest level of security alert, but a travel magazine indicates federal officials are considering requiring airports to tighten security further in case of actual terrorist attacks or threats. Sources told Business Travel News one new level of security would require airlines to open or x-ray all checked baggage. Another would require airports to put barriers in front of terminals to block suicide car bombings. CNN's Kitty Behoff reports airport managers are wondering who will pay for all the security changes.
The Gulf War is creating some permanent changes at the nation's airports, particularly a change in attitude, a new awareness now that airports will always be targets of terrorism.
We must take very seriously the threats of terrorist activities against targets here, and that's something we're going to have to live with.
If that means steps like permanently banning curbside check-in, some workers will seek employment elsewhere.
Let's say if I were making $100, I'm now lucky to get out with 20.
New federal security measures are expensive, particularly in labor costs for extra security. They're also costing airports. Families now say their goodbyes at the curb. Fewer parked cars mean lower airport revenues and less business for vendors. At Los Angeles International Airport, parking revenue is down 20% since the beginning of January.
And perhaps the biggest question of all, who should pay for the costs of additional security, be it added manpower or new equipment? The airports, the airlines, or the government?
It's really terrorism against the United States. It's not terrorism against civil aviation. And we feel that the federal government should come forth and spend more money to support the efforts of both the airports and the airlines.
Otherwise, airports will be forced to raise landing fees, a cost airlines will pass along to passengers. The fight over who pays is just beginning. In a time of recession, neither airlines nor airports want to get stuck with this bill. Kitty Behoff, CNN Business News, Chicago.
The stars were buzzing today as Hollywood announced this year's Oscar nominees. The top vote-getter, Dances with Wolves, with a dozen reasons to celebrate. The film received 12 nominations, including Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Actor. Kevin Costner starred in, produced, and directed the epic. The Godfather Part 3 received 7 nominations. It's also a contender for Best Picture and Best Director, but the film did not bring the expected Best Actor nomination for Hollywood veteran Al Pacino. Pacino did receive a nomination for Best Supporting Actor for his role in Dick Tracy. That film, although poorly received at the box office, also received 7 nominations. The winners will be announced at the Academy Awards ceremony on March 25th. Just ahead, controversy over an alleged attack on a Baghdad bunker. 2 guests will discuss the targets and the tactics in today's air raid.
Training in the deserts in case a ground war breaks out. But how ready are the U.S. reserves? A special assignment report and the continuing coverage of the war in the Gulf. Tonight, 6 Eastern on CNN.
It's Friday night at the Smith House.
I'll be here any minute.
Jane and Mike are having a party.
Did you pick the music?
8 guests, friends.
Spinning.
The food, the music, the lighting.
Candles?
Nothing was left to chance when suddenly...
Glasses?
Spotted.
Spots?
Spots.
We don't have time for spots.
You don't have time for spots, so use Cascade. The sheeting action rinses spots away.
Maybe they'll be late.
Maybe.
Maybe not.
Don't take chances. Use Cascade because you don't have time for spots.
That's life.
You little monkey face, you.
Dad, you didn't look so hot yourself a few months ago.
When the medical crisis is gone, the bills should be too. Aflac Supplemental Insurance helps close the gaps in your health insurance, like deductibles, co-payments. Aflac lets you get on with your life.
Grandpa came through a lot to see you.
She's my girl.
Life supplies the surprises. Aflac supplies the peace of mind.
Ricola, the all-natural herb cough drop imported from Switzerland. Ricola has been soothing throats and relieving coughs naturally for over 60 years.
Do yourself proud, make you look beautiful, do it for yourself with Minwax and Wood.
Get beautiful color with Minwax Wood Finish and lasting protection with Minwax Polyurethane.
So do yourself proud with Minwax and Wood.
Tonight, was this an Iraqi shelter for civilians or a military command center? Plus, mothers in the military, duty or family first? Tonight on Larry King Live, 9 Eastern on CNN.
Iraq is calling the Allied attack in Baghdad a crime, saying hundreds of civilians were killed in a bomb shelter. But the Allies say the shelter had been converted into a command and control center, a legitimate target. Here to talk about that are Congressman Robert Dornan of California and former Ambassador Marshall Wiley, who has served in Iraq. They join us from our Washington bureau. Gentlemen, instead of beginning with a question, I'm going to let you each give some thoughts about what you've seen and what you think about the bombing. First, Representative Dornan.
Well, I have seen the imagery that the sketches come from, and it certainly looked like a valid military target. It was a valid military target at one point, and to have the Iraqis talking about crimes of war, I would refer them to the Kurds, to the families in Israel of people who have lost people in deliberate targeting of civilian targets. I would recommend they read the book Rape of Kuwait and see the viciousness with which their soldiers rape some of the young girls. That book is available to every American now in every bookstore I've been in the last month, Rape of Kuwait. I would also recommend that they refer to the American missing in action families, the mothers, the fathers, and the wives. They claim they've killed one of our American pilots in a war crime by putting him at a bomb site, and they claim they have our female prisoner, Melissa Neely, at a bomb site maybe in Basra. They are so loaded with war crimes, they have no standing to talk whatsoever.
Ambassador Wiley, is all fair because Iraq is committing what the Allies think are war crimes?
Well, I don't know what the facts of this particular case are. I don't think any of us know for sure. But I do know one thing, and that is that this is a tremendous propaganda advantage for Saddam Hussein. Regardless of what we say, the people that dropped the bombs are going to be blamed for this rather than Saddam Hussein. And I think it points out the political pitfalls that we brought upon ourselves when we started the military aspect of this war.
Well, Marshall is correct. It may be a tremendous advantage, but then aren't we inflicting this upon ourselves because we are a free people? I reserve all judgment on my friend Peter Arnett, what he's doing. He may have a fascinating story to tell, but I'll just show you why he's going to have to explain some things. This morning when he was asked what were people doing in a so-called air raid shelter when there were no sirens, instead of saying, I don't know, that's a mystery. That actually is what Peter should have said. He said, oh, I don't know, maybe force of habit. Peter's not there to explain away what they're doing. He knows he's being used, and he's probably doing a good job in trying to get the truth through. But we, Marshall, are creating this war of information advantage for them by spilling this out all over the free world.
Well, there's no indication that the Allies knew ahead of time that there were civilians in the site. In fact, General Tom Kelly indicated they did not realize there were civilians there. Suppose the Allies did know, because this could come up in the future, that there are a great number of civilians at an important military target. How should this influence the decision that the Allies make on what to attack and when? Representative Dornan?
Well, I heard General Kelly, who I think, another one of the points where I've been wrong throughout the last month. I thought Kelly was not a very good briefer at the beginning. I think he's absolutely magnificent. He's superb. And he certainly has my confidence. And he said, look, we're going to rack our consciences. When did we ever hear a Nazi or Pol Pot or Idi Amin ever talking like that? Or Saddam Hussein, that he's going to rack his conscience to figure out how to be even more precise in what is already the most precise bombing in the history of siege or warfare going back to Greek fire.
Ambassador Wiley?
Well, I think the lesson that we need to draw from this is, sure, Saddam Hussein is a brutal person, but where do our interests lie in this whole situation? I think clearly we cannot afford to give the Iraqis this kind of a propaganda opening in the future. We need to restrict our bombing to areas that are clearly military targets and away from civilian centers, because even with the best of bombing, you get maybe 80% hits on the targets. The other 20% are going to go wide, and if you are bombing in an area where there are many civilians, you're going to kill civilians. We cannot afford to do that from the point of view of the political outcome. What we are looking for in the long run here is a new relationship between the United States and this part of the world. But as we escalate the military conflict, we are giving ourselves some severe disadvantages in trying to work out a sensible relationship with this part of the world in the future.
Well, I understand what Marshall is saying, but I would disagree with him to this extent, and another place where I've been wrong. I predicted that this thing would have been over weeks ago because I underestimated the Hitler analogy, the socio-psychopathic personality of Saddam Hussein. I didn't believe, given my CIA briefings, that this man was so dumb he would let his country be destroyed this way. Every bridge over the Tigris and the Euphrates, every ministerial building, and more to come. He is pulling his country down a rat hole exactly like Hitler said the German people must suffer because of what's happening to me from his bunker. But I am going to go out on a limb again and say I don't believe there will be a land war, which would even reinforce the point that Marshall is making. I think another week or two of this pounding, and even an idiot like Saddam Hussein will have his officers on their knees. If they don't have the guts to shoot him, then they ought to have the guts to get down on their knees and beg for their families and for their country's infrastructure not to have him destroyed any longer. All he has to do is seriously tell the Russians or Geneva or anybody, I'm pulling out of Kuwait, no conditions, lock, stock, and barrel. The bombing ends that night.
Mr. Wiley,
Yeah.
you said just a moment ago that the United States and the Allies cannot afford to open up these propaganda opportunities for Iraq. And yet there are some who would say that the United States and the Allies cannot afford to fight a war by certain rules and ethics and guidelines, as it appears to be doing, that Iraq is not following, that it puts the United States troops at an unfair disadvantage.
Well, I think we need to understand where Saddam Hussein is coming from. He makes points by proving that he can take our worst hits, that he can stand up to the military might of the, quote, bully, unquote, the United States. He has already made a lot of progress in the Arab world and in the Muslim world by demonstrating that he can stand up to us. So this damage, as long as he survives, really works to his benefit. He is gradually turning the Arab world and the Muslim world against the United States. And instead of focusing on Saddam's personality, what we now find that we are gradually slipping into a war between the United States and the whole Arab world. This is not a good thing for the U.S. We need to use different tactics.
Well, that may be where the burden is on all people in the free world not to carry every lying story that comes out of Baghdad without more circumspection and careful looking at this to see if we're creating hatred in the Arab world. You see, I carry this picture with me now for the rest of the war. This is the beautiful young Israeli lady torn apart by a Scud missile on the first night of bombing, of deliberate bombing of civilian areas. Most people in the Arab world don't care about that. They don't care about Kurds. The average man in the street, I'm sorry to say, dismisses any brutality to anybody that's not an Arab, and therefore we shouldn't feed them pictures of Arabs that are hurt if they're going to be so narrow-minded that the only human rights violations they see are when a mistake is made, a real, honest mistake is made, and a young Arab child dies. That blood is on his hands, not on President Bush or the poor pilot that was given that target assignment of what was obviously looking like a military target.
But Congressman, there's no way that we can control all the media output from the Middle East or the consequences of the actions that we have undertaken in that part of the world. We need to think more broadly in terms of our own political objectives, what we are trying to do, and not focus on the personality of Saddam Hussein or his particular brutalities. We have to deal with a whole people here, with the Arab people, with the Iraqi people. We have to think in terms of how we are going to work with these people in the future. And what we are doing in escalating the war is really hurting us very much in terms of our own, the political outcome. We are losing the political war while we are winning the military war.
Thanks to both of you. I have to cut it off there because we're out of time, but thank you very much for sharing your thoughts, Representative Robert Dornan and Ambassador Marshall Wiley. Lou?
As we've been reporting, the Allied officials are firm in their contention that the structure which was bombed was a legitimate military target. We have more on all of this from CNN's Rick Salinger in Saudi Arabia.
To the Allied coalition, this was not known as a civilian air raid shelter.
I'm here to tell you that it was a military bunker. It was a command and control facility. It's one of many that has been used by the Iraqi government throughout this operation.
He said it had been an air raid shelter in 1985, but it was upgraded to a hardened shelter for command and control. It was targeted before the war. The facility became more active 2 to 3 weeks ago. Radio transmissions had been monitored from here with military operations in Kuwait. Further evidence, the Allies claim, the bunker's roof was recently painted to camouflage the view of it from the sky. If the large loss in civilian lives threatened the participation of the Arab nations in the coalition, there was no immediate sign of that. In fact, the spokesman for the Joint Arab Forces suggested the blame goes to Iraq.
If the governor of Iraq put civilians in it for propaganda purposes, then he will be the one who killed his people.
Even before this bombing, the Allies had been receiving reports that the Iraqi military machine had been moving into civilian neighborhoods as a refuge from attacks. This structure was deemed a legitimate military target, isolated from the civilian population.
We have a responsibility to take them out rather than endanger our own people. And I might add that this is contrary, of course, to the Iraqi stance where Scud missiles are fired at cities and innocent populations, and where without Patriot missiles, massive destruction of civilians would occur in this place.
The bunker was hit with 2 precision bombs through an air shaft. Military personnel and vehicles had been seen here according to intelligence reports. What that intelligence did not detect was civilian use of the shelter. For that, there was regret.
Well, you're damn right. If 400 civilians, as reported, were killed, then logic would tell you that, of course, the American public and the coalition forces are saddened by that fact.
He insisted the incident did not involve a breakdown in intelligence. Military sources here say it was contrary to Saddam Hussein's policy to allow civilians at military sites. So there is the thought, if not the suggestion, that perhaps they were permitted inside knowing full well the shelter might be hit. Rick Selinger, CNN, Riyadh, Saudi Arabia.
We'll have more news when we return, and this reminder that the Iraqi ambassador to the United Nations will be a guest tonight on Larry King Live. Stay with us.
Assignment and go out and do it with some aggressiveness.
Why is it that some people constantly manage to reach heights others can only dream of? A few towns in western Pennsylvania have produced more football legends than any other place.
We play with poise and
Dan Marino.
We know at the end of this game.
Johnny Unitas. George Blanda. What is it about these towns that gives birth to such greatness? Fierce pride, tradition, an obsession with excellence, the very things that drive us at Ford. When leadership is in your blood, you push yourself to greater and greater heights. Our 1991 four-door Explorer and Escort have recorded the highest customer satisfaction ratings in our history. And starting right now, you'll be seeing more new models and exciting innovation from Ford and Lincoln Mercury than you've seen in years. America fell in love with Ford in the 80s, and we're going to be even tougher to beat in the 90s. Ford Motor Company.
Okay, here's the way it is. If we're going to make our numbers this year, we've got to do two things. Generate more volume and get a handle on our expenses. I want you to go through this place department by department. Take a look at everything we're doing and figure out how we can do it better. While you're at it, take a look at this. Saw this on the plane. It sounds like it can help us control our travel expenses. Maybe it can, maybe it can't. Let's find out.
The en route card, single-minded, business-focused.
If you're counting calories, here's something you should know. An entire Kellogg's Special K breakfast, including cereal, fruit, skim milk, and coffee, actually has fewer calories than the leading diet shake. Fewer calories. And when you're dieting, isn't that what's important? Kellogg's Special K. Lose the fat.
More letters to CNN regarding the Gulf War.
We have one from Los Angeles. Iraq, a nation with a population of less than 1/10 that of the United States, which I suppose makes it one of the smaller nations on Earth, has the 4th largest armed forces in the world. While I do not think the underlying questions of culpability concerning the sales of certain non-conventional weapons to Iraq should be ignored, it seems that the more salient question is, how could the superpowers and the other highly developed nations of the world permit such a situation to arise?
Here's a letter coming to us from Athens, Greece. A while ago today, I saw an interview on CNN of a man from Amman, Jordan, of the Jordan Times. He said that the U.S. is bombing civilians in Iraq and that the Americans are schizophrenic for doing this. Well, I have something to say about that. Can he tell us about the terrorists that put bombs in places where people walk by? And they have been doing this for years when there was no war. Just this morning at about 2 a.m., a bomb went off outside the bank not too far from my house. The street where the bank is located is a very busy street. About 500,000 people go by there a day. If the bomb had a delay of 2 to 4 hours, it could have killed at least 300 people.
Dallas, Texas writes, there was a time in the United States when people beamed with pride about the freedom that our press enjoys. It was then a chip on our shoulder as well as a light for other nations to see what freedom was all about. Eat your heart out, it seemed we were saying to the world, we are free. Now there is a bitter, cynical, and intolerant trend in America which seems to feel this freedom as a luxury we can no longer afford. This trend, ironically today, seems to be threatening the very medium it uses to express itself. This is the real threat to our national security, not Peter Arnett.
You can fax your comments to us by calling 404-681-1037. 3578. The United States is riding a wave of patriotism. From flagpoles to the airwaves, the message is one of support for the military. CNN's Pat Etheridge reports.
Military experts say the arsenal, which includes combat planes and surface-to-surface missiles, may mean that Iraq's planning a surprise attack on the...
From news to schmooze, the nation's airwaves have a newfound crackle.
Oh, hear this. Saddam Hussein shot his wife last night because he caught her drinking a Bush beer. Oh, boy. Al, thanks. Get out of here.
The programming is particularly patriotic in military towns. Take Charleston, South Carolina.
We're originating our show from Kelly's Jewelry this morning. We're up on Rivers Avenue. Come on by. We'd love to have you on hand. When you come by, be sure and bring your American flags, red, white, and blue T-shirts and hats and whatever you got. You got a hat on up there. It says USS Missouri, 1945, Tokyo Bay. What were the years you were on board the USS Missouri?
44 to 47.
44 to 47. The Missouri is seeing action over there right now today. Some people said the Missouri is an old, war-torn battleship. It ought to have been mothballed years and years and years ago, but it is sure showing its colors over there.
Well, I should have been mothballed years ago, too, but I'm ready to go.
Mac, thanks for coming by.
One more thing.
There's this from Norfolk, Virginia.
Hello, you're on the air in FM 99. Good morning.
These guys need to stop protesting because what we're doing over there is protecting their right to do exactly what they're doing.
And from Columbus, Georgia, home of Fort Benning.
Operation Desert Rock, I would like to wish Kevin a happy birthday. And Carolyn, go ahead and make your dedication.
Happy birthday, baby. I hope that you're here next year on your birthday. I love you.
Thanks, Carolyn.
Thank you.
We received a lot of letters from the field in the desert, Saudi Arabia, and we've been getting tons of requests here.
This song we dedicate to all those in Operation Desert Storm, and I'll play this song every day until they get back. This is Oleta Adams, Get Here on Foxy 105.
You can reach me by caravan, across the desert like an errand man. I don't care how you get here, just get here if you can.
We try to stay abreast of what's happening over there and let our listeners know about it, but also we are their escape for the moment from the tension and the worry.
We are not turning our backs on the troops over in the Middle East. No, we're not.
We try to support them in any way we can because, as I say, they're part of our family.
I don't care how you get here, just get here if you can.
Pat Etheridge, CNN, Columbus, Georgia.
And that's our report for this hour. I'm Lou Waters at CNN Center in Atlanta.
I'm Cheryl Atkinson. Stay tuned.
Take care.
It's tax time. Now you can have your tax returns prepared accurately, quickly, and inexpensively at the Manassas Financial Center. The qualified consultants are prepared to handle the simplest to the most complex returns, and their computers guarantee accuracy and speed of preparation. Plus, direct communication to the IRS allows them to electronically file returns at no extra cost to receive a fast refund. If you prepare your own return, there'll be a charge to enter it, but they'll file it for free. Manassas Financial Center. Call for an appointment, 368-5660.
You already know Altman Medical Center, the alternative to urgent medical care, is the most convenient, less expensive, and most comprehensive treatment center for minor medical problems. You also know we have x-ray and lab facilities. We can handle all minor injuries from lacerations to fractures, plus pediatric care and employment physicals. But Altman Medical Center is also proud of the fact that you don't have to wait. In most cases, you can be in and out in under an hour. Altman Medical Center, comprehensive, less expensive, and more convenient, just south of Route 66 on Sudley Road.
And the greatest hits of the 17th century, both absolutely free. This magnificent collection would easily cost $30 or $40 if purchased separately. But thanks to this special promotional offer, it can be yours for only $19.95. Please stay tuned to order.
To order this prestigious collection of 5 records, 5 cassettes, or 5 compact discs, use your credit card and call 1-800-257-1257. That's 1-800-257-1257.